the Volt has a new version. This is version 3 from Tiffen.
You're watching CineD, supported by B&H and CVP.
Hey everyone, Graham Mailer-Sheldon here from CineD.com. Welcome back to Cine Gear 2024. We're at the Warner Brothers lot, and I'm in the Tiffen tent, which is fun to say, with Nick from Tiffen. How's it going, Nick?
Doing well, thank you.
I'm very excited to talk about the Volt 3. It's kind of a, well, you tell me, but it's an amalgamation of sort of gimbal technology and standard Steadicam technology. How do you look at it?
Yeah, so we like to think about the Volt as an operator assistance device, right? So rather than having to backseat drive a computer or kind of hope that you and the computer end up agreeing on what the frame should look like, you're still fully in control of the frame, but it takes away kind of the more annoying parts of being a Steadicam operator, dealing with keeping the horizon level, dealing with making sure you've got a really, really light touch on the post so that it doesn't get all waggly and go out where you don't want it. We use the Volt to kind of mitigate that, maybe give you almost a feeling of kind of like a fluid head, right? Where you have that cushion and that ability to control it, keep it right where you want it. So the only thing you're thinking about is the frame, not whether or not the wind is blowing you off level or giving you any issues on your tilts, that sort of thing.
I mean, right off the bat, horizon errors can be a thing, so that's cool to hear that it handles that. Now, I'm aware of the Volt, the previous Volt generations. Does the Volt 3 mean that those are kind of gone? Are they still available to some extent?
Yeah, not at all. The Volt, current generation of Volt, is still the Volt at the moment. This one we're showing here is a prototype. We're still somewhat in the design phase, so we're taking a lot of feedback from camera operators, trying to figure out what's going to help them, what's going to get in their way, make sure we can polish it up, make sure it's as bulletproof as it can be when it actually comes out. So right now, for example, a lot of these controls are not final. They will definitely change before the final version. We're working on slimming this down a little bit. We recognize that it's a little bulky, so we're definitely going to cut down the height, etc. So a lot of that sort of stuff is still yet to come. Current generation Volt, still very, very good at helping operators deal with managing their horizons and not have to think about all those little bookkeeping things that are really annoying about operating. But this is just going to add a whole nother level when it comes out. That extra confidence of having the third axis finally managed as well. Operators won't have to be second guessing the machinery. It's just going to work the way they want it to.
Well, let's get into the finer details of that. So differences between previous generation of Volt and this current prototype generation that we're seeing here at Cine Gear. What are the key difference? What, based on the feedback that you heard from operators out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the initial thought with the first generation of Volt was we didn't really want to touch the pan axis because the thought was that's kind of encroaching on the operator's choices and their creativity. Generally speaking, one of the problems that you often have with other electronic stabilization systems is if you and the system don't quite agree on how that pan is supposed to look, you're just kind of left second guessing it and trying again and again and again. With a Steadicam, the big draw is the immediacy of the operator's mind to the lens, right? You don't have to worry about, you're not talking or coordinating with another operator like on the wheels or on the dolly or any of that. It's all you. So we want to maintain that. Now, one of the things with the current Gen Volt, since it leaves the pan axis alone, and it helps you with roll and tilt, that means it's really only one place for the bad vibes to go. So if you have any issues managing that, then they're a little bit harder to control. So we add this extra motor, that's what this chunky piece is here. This essentially moves in and makes it a hybrid between having a normal bearing where we would have for taking friction away from pan and a motor similar to like what we use to control tilt and roll in the current Gen Volt. And this makes it so that when operators are in those deep tilts, something like that, we don't have to worry about the rig rolling out as it tilts back down because you don't have an unmanaged bearing with no friction just floating around. In the worst case scenarios, when you need a lot of extra pressure from the motors and the current Volt, what it can feel like is like if you had a fluid head and someone took all the fluid out of pan and then cranked it on tilt, it's kind of awkward. Not to say it's unmanageable, but it is the sort of thing that people have often given us feedback about, like, hey, in certain situations, this is rough for me. So adding that control into pan allows us to make sure that they stay matched and that you don't have to worry about outside influences, heavy wind, things that want to blow your camera around. It helps lock that out.
Well, Nick, obviously every operator is a little bit different. How tunable can I make these various settings with the latest generation of the Volt? You know what I mean? Because I don't want to feel like it's fighting my natural instincts. So how tunable is that? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked. So again, it is prototype, so there are a lot of things that we're changing in terms of the tuning. We're getting a lot of feedback from operators about what feels good, what doesn't feel so great, trying to make sure that it, out of the box, it works really well. Because for us, we don't want people having to dive into apps and messing with a bunch of software themselves. We want all the controls hardware-wise right there if they can be. We want to make it so that you don't have to think about extra stuff. That's kind of the whole point of the Volt in the first place, thinking about managing your horizon and whatnot is extra stuff. It's not framing a shot. It's not being creative. So we want this to be like that too, somewhat seamless. That said, there's plenty of tuning still left to do. At the moment, please forgive the prototype controls. They will change. Likely we'll have some more on the other side so that we don't have to dive into like submenus or deal with that sort of stuff. But we have the current gen volts controls, the tilt and the roll, plus damping, which makes sure that we can really fine-tune how the volt responds to those situations. And the new part is pan. So I can turn this motor up so that it's very, very strong. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of like what some operators use when they put like a gyro or something on the bottom to really lock it out for those crazy movement situations like a vehicle mount or anything where you really don't want the rig to move, but with the beauty of not making a ton of noise and being a real pain to work with. Or you can tune it down and have it feel much more natural, like a typical, very frictionless bearing would be. But our extra special secret sauce is now that we have the control through, at the moment, diving into a submenu, I can actually adjust the inertia of the rig. I can make it feel like it's a heavier, wider rig without having to add weight, tiring out the operator, or just from adding things like antlers, stuff that we often use when it's windy or just in general to make sure you have nice, smooth moves. And then we have a new feature that's not really possible without having that motor control. We're referring to as braking. I do like to kind of think about it as being a lot like drag in a fluid head, but it's an intelligent drag. So when I have a lot of braking set, there's a little bit of a braking pressure to move the sled, but once you get free, it moves just like a normal sled up until you want it to stop. And when it feels that little bit of pressure from your hand, it's like another set of hands comes in to lock it down. So for your whip pans, for anything where you need to land and be super solid and not second guess it, it's just a little extra bit of assurance.
Well, Nick, Cine Gear is literally closing down around us right now. There's a literal Batmobile now driving down the Werther Brothers lot. They just turned on the engine. Before I let you go, can you just walk me through which sleds from Tiffen this system's compatible with? I see it on the M2 right now. Any other ones we should just go ahead and list right here, right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So when this launches, we're hoping end of year, but we'll see. Again, it is in the design phase still too. A lot of iteration to go. It will be M2 only. So the control boards live inside, and then the controls will attach on the outside. It will go into an existing M2 top stage just fine, but at the moment we won't have an external control box. We are committed to releasing that down the road, and that would be what would allow us to go onto older Steadicam brand sleds or other sleds like a Pro or an XCS or those sort of things. So that will come, but after this guy.
Now, if I already have an M2, can I send it into you guys to get it upgraded with the Volt 3 system?
Once everything's ready, that's the idea. Yeah, absolutely. But currently, like I said, we're still doing a lot of work on it. But yeah, the existing M2 top stage is ready to take the board. We'll change a few things around on there. It is a whole new gimbal because this is essentially fully electronic now. So we would replace an existing gimbal. I think some operators will maybe keep their old one just in case they want to have something non-electronic as a backup. But yeah, that would be something that our service department would be itching to do once we finally have them ready to go.
Well, Nick, thank you so much. Just pricing, I mean, you talked, I know prototype, like ballpark, similar to, no?
Yeah, unfortunately nothing yet, mostly because we're still so early in the design phase. We don't know our final choices for parts or other parts of the design, so until we know our costs, we can't really give you guys a price. I mean, I can tell you, like the current generation Volt, like if you were to buy a kit with a gimbal and like an external control box, those sell for just north of $12,000, so, and that it could give you a ballpark. I imagine we'll probably be somewhere around there, maybe a little higher because we're adding more functions, but I'm only speculating.
Now, and like always, we'll be able to demo these things in your showroom probably in Los Angeles and Burbank?
Yeah, if you're local, if you can pop by the Burbank location, which is actually our factory, we actually have a really nice training space as well where a lot of operators will come just to practice and get reps in. It's a great place to network, and it definitely, when they're here to demo, they'll be in the house, generally speaking, any day of the week, and we can put it on you, try it out.
Well, Nick, thank you for listening to feedback from operators. I really appreciate that. I know you guys probably do as well. So we'll leave it there. I hope you had a great Cine Gear.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
All right, that's it for us here at Cine Gear 2024. Those are the updates coming soon to the Volt system from Tiffen. Thanks for watching, everybody.